Welcome to Local History, Legends, and Lore. I'm Julie Lugo, Cerra, your host, and today our guest is Jozelle Smith. Jozelle has the dubious reputation, I guess, of being the first honor, that's it, of being our first second-generation council member. Jozelle, how are you today?
I'm fine. The intro was so great. I was interested in watching. I want to see more.
Oh, great. Well, you've lived Culver City, haven't you?
Yep.
Tell me about your early life. How long have you been here?
I used to call myself Culver City's oldest living native. Let's see, I was born in 1939 at a little building next to the new Kirk Douglas Theater, Culver Theater, between that and Sam and Woody's coffee shop, or the Double Dutch Dinette. That was Culver City Hospital.
Community Hospital,
yep,
Culver City Community Hospital. Yep. I was born there too.
And it's still standing, isn't it amazing?
Yeah, amazing. They're using it for storage now.
That tells you something.
That's about it. So how did you get the name Jozelle?
Well, this was my mother's concoction. My dad's name was Joe, and her name was Hazel. So during those long 9 months of gestation, she figured out Joe and Zell, and then put a couple of L's and E's on the end, and that's how Jozelle came about. I always hated my name. I wanted to be called Mary.
Do you have a middle name?
Jeanette, after grandmother. But no, this is interesting. When I was 7, for a year, I had them call me Julie, and they did it. That's
really?
An only child for you. Yeah.
That's great. I never changed my name. Okay. So tell me, what schools did you attend in Culver City?
Culver Grammar School, which is now Linwood Howe. Culver City Junior High, which is now middle school, and Culver City High School.
Okay, and what was Culver City like when you were growing up? Give me a picture of it. What do you remember? What did you do? What was the lay of the land?
Okay, there was horseback riding at Red Riding Stables on Slauson, which was over by the Fox Hills and Golf Course and Baldwin Golf Courses. That's where Fox Hills Mall or Westfield Shopping Town, Fox Hills is now. Roller skating at the Rollerdrome on Washington, going for hamburgers at the Clock Drive-In, sitting on the curb behind MGM Studios waiting for stars to drive through the gate, and if the guard, Ken Hollywood, was feeling good, he'd let us ask him for autographs.
Really?
Oh yeah, it was fun times.
Yeah, that's good. Do you remember the streets being laid out any differently? Do you remember any bean fields? I don't think you're old enough for that, are you?
Oh yeah, bean fields. That would be Jefferson, down around that way. Oh yeah, streets were laid out somewhat differently. The major ones were there. The back lot for MGM was off of Jefferson.
Did you ever climb the fence?
Oh, someone told you? Not that back lot. No, the one on Overland, or rather between Overland and Culver now, where Studio Estates.
Oh.
I think I climbed that one.
Lot 2.
In my day, Lot 2, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I blocked that, yeah.
I've almost met no one who has been in legally. There's almost every person in this town, in elected and appointed capacities particularly, all of them went through.
It was a rite of passage.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I guess so.
Had to do it.
So tell me about your mom and dad.
Okay, my dad was born in Northern California, my mom in Arkansas. Their paths crossed in Culver City in the early 30s. They loved to go dancing. Yeah, we're looking at a picture of my dad, Joe Lawless. And they loved to dance. My mom's family lived on Baldwin Avenue, longtime MGM studio workers. My grandmother in wardrobe, my grandfather's an electrician. MGM was a studio town. Culver City was a studio town for MGM, because I remember every afternoon at 5:30 or 6, you'd see all these gentlemen walking home from the studios carrying their lunch boxes, and it was kind of an exodus to the studio in the morning and then back home in the afternoon. My grandmother had wonderful stories to tell about fitting the stars in wardrobe, and she worked with Irene and some of the other big designers. My mom was an extra in San Francisco. The movie was filmed up in Baldwin Hills, and she talked about earning $5 a day and a sack lunch for running up and down the hills after the earthquake and stuff, supposedly. My dad was a printer, owned a printing company on Clarington now, just behind where the current Trader Joe's is, soon to be moved. My mother was quiet. Really, her family, her home, and her home life was all, and my dad was the active one. So he and a bunch of his buddies that were all young, kind of the young Turks, businessmen of the day, formed the Lions Club, formed the Moose Lodge, were active in the Chamber of Commerce, ran for public office. It's just kind of what you did.
Sounds like a good group. Here's an interesting piece.
Yeah, when my dad retired from his term on city council, that was his going away party, and so all the folks that were there signed it.
You have some pretty impressive names on there, people who have gone on to be on the Board of Education, some people who have been on the council, and certainly a lot of active members of the community.
Talking back to Culver City Hospital when I was born, my mother, of course, the lying-in period then was like 2 weeks before you could go home after you had a baby. But one of her visitors was a young Culver City police officer named Charlie Lugo, who played ball with my dad. He was your dad, of course.
Right.
And he came and brought $5 to start a savings account for me as a new baby gift. And $5 from his pay was, not insignificant.
Well,
so thank you.
You're very welcome. That was a little bit before I was born. He probably thought if he contributed to yours that maybe they'd get lucky and have children because they were looking forward to that.
Well, I hope my folks repaid the
I think
the
so.
gift, yeah.
I think so. So your father was on the school board before he was on the council, wasn't he?
That's right. He was on the Culver City School Board while I was in school, which made it very interesting because the teachers would always say, "Oh, hi, Jozelle, be sure and tell your dad I gave you a good grade and all that, but they were just, he was kidding because I had a great time in school, but he enjoyed it. A lot of his friends and local community leaders and those who stayed to go on to other office served at that time.
Okay, and then how did he make that transition to the council?
Don't have any idea. I think it was a natural progression because you just continued to serve, and if you wanted to stay active in the community, you moved on, you did more for the community, and that's kind of the way I learned, and I know you learned too. It's just community service is just an automatic.
It seems like there's a group in town that I call the Culver City Condominium Committee. It's the fabulous 400 who are kind of all over the place and doing a lot of service, and I'm sure you're more than a part of that.
Same folks write checks for the same major events, patronize the same restaurants and support the city.
So then, after you got out of high school, when did you meet Kenny?
Met my husband when I was a senior at Culver High. Then I went on just to do a year at UCLA, and then we got married very young. Stayed in Culver City. And it was interesting because both of our sons attended Culver High, and they had some of the same teachers that I had when I went there.
Oh my gosh.
So that continuity you don't see, I don't think, that often.
Not very often, not very often. So why did you decide to run for council, and why did you don't know why your dad ran? Just because it seemed like the natural thing to do?
I don't think I had any more compelling reason, I don't think, than my dad did, other than to serve the community. I was on the Parks and Recreation Commission already. Most of our friends were affiliated with the city, either members of the police department or active or worked for City Hall in some capacity. There hadn't been a woman on the city council since 1957, I believe, was the only other woman who had
Mary
served.
Lou Richardson.
Yeah, and I don't consider myself a feminist by any token, but I thought, it might be nice to get a little different energy on the council. And I had a decent amount of name recognition because I'd written a newspaper column for, well, at that point it had been 20 years then. And so I had name recognition. I knew the community through the schools, ongoing, either having attended, our kids having attended, and I thought, it's time for a change. Let's shake things up a little bit. So that's why I ran.
Oh, let's see. There's a picture of your dad.
Oh, yeah, that's when my dad was on the city council again. Let's see. He was a U.S. Conference of Mayors convention.
In Hawaii?
Yep, he attended that in 1967, I believe. And I went on, I continued our participation in the Conference of Mayors, too, because I thought it was important to meet with mayors of cities large and small across America. And so I think I went, the 8 years I served on city council, I probably went to 7 or 8 of their conferences nationally.
Gosh. Great.
Yeah, I was kind of known as the traveling mayor. I got a little good-natured and not so good-natured criticism for the junkets I took, but I attribute some of the ideas I was able to bring back and get implemented in our city from things that I learned from mayors and council members from other cities.
Well, oftentimes I think you pick up things from other
Sure.
people's mistakes.
You can get very insular, you know.
Now, here's...
Well, the
here's
second term that I had successful election was in 1990, and Mike Balkman, the late Mike Balkman, and I were both elected. I was the incumbent, and he was the new kid on the block. 56 feet refers to a height limit that was also on the ballot. That was a hotly contested issue that certain folks really got involved in city government through issues that impacted them. So the fact that something might impact your view from the top of Culver Crest, you know, there became an issue for some of the folks, and they formed a group and they got involved, and so that's what makes city government so dynamic.
That's Culver City.
Dynamic is, yeah, dynamic is a good word.
I think so. Yeah, that was a hot election.
Yeah, that it was, but...
What were the hot burning issues when you were serving all 8 years?
Well, I think one of the hottest issues was this theater, not the theater, the studio that wanted to expand, for God's sake. This upstart named Sony, you know, thought they could come in and take over our community, impact traffic. There would be crowding, there'd be noise, there'd be air pollution, streets would be jammed. You know, what good was this thing? And here we had some really busy public hearings, you know, a lot of energetic opponents, a lot of energetic proponents, and you know, fortunately, the city council came to the decision after a lot of mitigating, you know, measures, that this was really a great business to be in and to have in our town. And I believe this was a council that just prior the makeup of this council to the Sony issue, but this was the original city council that Richard Alexander, that's he's on the far right of the group. It's probably about accurate, maybe for his politics also.
Now, he served 16 years, I think, didn't
he was a long-time mayor and city council member. And Dick Brendo in the light jacket, Paul Netzel in the center, and myself and Paul Jacobs on the left.
And Paul, I think, served
another 16 years. And Paul Netzel or Paul Jacobs?
Paul Jacobs.
Yeah, those guys were on a long time. I remember the night I was seated, I said, it's possible for someone to come in and actually be a positive council member whose name is not Paul or Richard. And that was me. So.
That was you. And you had fun together.
Oh, that was one of our quieter meetings. Yeah, no, that was actually at the Culver City Chamber of Commerce used to sponsor the Miss Culver City Beauty Pageant. And so we put together a song based on the melody, Everything's Up to Date in Kansas City. So we had lyrics, Everything's Up to Date in Culver City. We sang it with gusto, as you can see, at the event. Richard Brendo was not there. He would have been, but his father had passed away, I believe, just that day. So, of course, he was not there. But we had a great time. We were a very collegial group. There was a demeanor and a tact and a positive air about our deliberations that, unfortunately, is not always present today.
It seemed like that council particularly was able to drop everything and then be friends on the outside or enjoy each other on the outside.
Yeah, we looked at Culver City as a whole, and I think that was prior to the times where neighbors had special issues, neighborhoods or pockets of folks had problems that drew them tighter, so that it became a sort of an us versus City Hall or us versus them feeling, and then that's kind of developed the leaders and the activists that are ending up serving in the city today, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah, in Culver City, with it only being 5 square miles, it's kind of hard to district now.
I was active as a representative for the city in the League of California Cities, and there's Governor Pete Wilson at the time in the center of the picture, and this was our board for the LA County Division of the League. I served as president of the LA County Division's 88 cities, and that was great too, because it enabled me just to see what other cities that were right in our contiguous area, what they were doing and what they did impacted, how it impacted us, and how we could improve or tweak ideas that they had to make it work for our city.
What kind of things came to the forefront that you were able to implement in Culver City? Can you think of any?
Well, the thing that I think I was the proudest of was recycling, because we never, we didn't want to touch this whole recycling issue at all. And so fortunately, I was able to drag some of our city staff folks into meetings where we were able to get that going. And I think Culver City is really highly successful now in the amount of waste
I
it's been
think
able
so.
to eliminate. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got an enormous reputation in that.
Well, and there came time to bid goodbye to the old City Hall, and that was the last, probably the last meeting at the old City Hall, and the facade is now replaced today, of course, in our new City Hall, which is a really nice tribute to history. That was Council Member James Bulgarides, Paul Jacobs, myself, Stephen Gorley, and Richard Alexander kind of drinking a toast and bidding farewell to that last council meeting in the old City Hall.
Now, Dr. Bulgarides and Steve Gorley were two of the council members who felt very strongly about term limits. How do you feel about term limits?
Well, I always tend to believe that if you're not doing a good job, there's kind of a natural attrition that but then I look on the other side, should a person be in office for 20 years? I don't know. You've got staff and you've got other support people that have a good historical, memory. And I think I tend to think 8 years is probably enough now.
Well, you and I chose 8 years would be enough for both of us, I know. We just kind of decided that was the natural
And you
thing.
were president of the school board, I think, when I was mayor. I always considered us that pound for pound, we were the two most popular, powerful women in the city.
Well, we certainly had a lot of fun.
That's true.
And there certainly was a little bit better relationship between the city and the school district, I think.
Yeah, we really tried to set up some issues whereby we could work together without the funding that the schools needed, without having come from the city, because they're two separate agencies, but yet being able to trade and exchange some benefits.
Part of, I think, that relationship spawned the idea to go ahead and pull together and get Fox Hills into the school district, because I know when we were kids, Fox Hills was not in the district, and when they annexed it in '64 to Culver City, nobody thought about doing that because gophers didn't go to school, rabbits didn't go to school. That's all you had there.
That's right.
So it wasn't until I was on the school board and you were on the council that we kind of pulled together and went to the LA Board of Education, and it was kind of fun for me because at that time the mayor had switched and Mike Bogman was the mayor, but you had dragged me to an event to hear Roberta Weintraub.
Yes.
Before
Roberta
either of us
Weintraub.
ran. Yeah, when you were kind of getting ready to see how it was done.
Well, too, Fox Hills initially appeared to be more of an adult community, condominiums, townhouse development. We didn't think that there'd be a large, school-age population moving in there.
Right.
So, but we really had to come to consider that.
Right, and before we got Fox Hills into the school district so that we had the coterminous boundaries, what we were able to do was work with redevelopment funds with you folks so that you did things for the school district like redo the restrooms at Robert Frost, because that was a benefit to the entire community.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and
there was a work
I think
with
issues on the football field and locker rooms and all,
Right, yeah, we did a lot of that. Oh, here's some more fun you got to have.
Oh, Hal Roach, yes.
That was
down.
1992 when he served as the honorary chair of our 75th anniversary committee.
And wasn't he approaching 100?
The next week.
Oh, he was,
Yeah,
rapidly.
yeah.
Okay.
That was on January 11th of 92, and I think it was 3 days later that he turned 100.
I'd forgotten all about that.
And of course, you were standing there giving the address.
Probably reading the proclamation.
Undoubtedly, yeah. He was great. I loved him.
That was good.
That was a wonderful experience.
We truly are the heart of Screenland, that.
Right.
And
And Sony Pictures let us use the Thalberg Building steps to kick off the
because
event,
it was just so
which I thought was
classic.
nice.
I don't know if you can see this pin, Julie, but back in the 1984, during the '84 Olympics, some of us in the city that worked and volunteered for the Olympics got into the pin trading frenzy, and so we decided, why couldn't we capitalize on this and get a Culver City pin? So I know we asked you to somehow tweak that old-fashioned movie camera that was on some of our logo materials at the time, And a friend of mine from the YMCA, Mary Ellen Fernandez, and we decided we would purchase these pins, turn around and resell them with the proceeds going to the Y in Culver City, and they were a huge hit, and people are still wearing them. And that was in 1985, I think.
Well, you were at the forefront.
Yeah.
Boy,
Yeah. So maybe we should reissue a few of those.
And you're still raising money for the Y.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, this is more fun that you have, as I recall. That was the dedication of Sid Cronenthal Park.
Tell me what year that was, because I don't recall.
It was 92 also.
Okay, and there's...
It looks like Paul Jacobs on the left.
Stephen Gorley, Mike Balkman, there's Sid. Mm-hmm.
Sit in front at the microphone, and Jody Hollesser was the CAO at the time, and she's over on the right.
Yep.
Yeah, so I guess Dr. Bulgarides is in the back.
He must be back there somewhere, yeah.
I'm sure he was, yeah. That was McManus Park.
It was.
That was renamed specifically for Sid. Sid came to work for the city the year I was born. He was here a long time.
No one really knows, how old Sid was when he got here, but he's been a tradition.
No,
really.
he absolutely has
And
been.
Cronenthal
Another
Park,
legend.
it's a flagship park now, I think, and the east end of Culver City has undergone such a terrific upgrading, and I know that's may not be your favorite style of design, but East Culver City, street furniture and street
Oh,
fixtures.
the Washington Lands seascape?
Yeah.
Streetscape.
Streetscape,
Yeah, something like that.
But it's really nice. And Cronenthal Park, I think I've written a newspaper column for probably 30 years now, and I know one of the columns I just wrote lately focused on 3 or 4 events that were coming up, and every one of them was going to be at Cronenthal Park. So it's a heavily used park and a great...
Well, they seem to have an active community group at that end.
They do.
Oh.
Now, there is a familiar man, Julie, your dad, Charlie, Lugo, and I at a Culver City Historical Society picnic. I think we were doing a brass rubbing off of a brass plaque, which I didn't know how to do, but your dad helped me with that.
Yeah, we did a lot of those. We used to involve the kids in that. That's one of the ways that the children learn, and it's great. So you're a member of the Historical Society. You were a founding member. You've been active with the YMCA, and you've been on the board of the YMCA for how many years?
25 years, I guess.
my
Yeah,
God.
the Y, I think, is really stayed a vibrant part of the community. And I'm also on the governing board and incoming chair for Brotman Medical Center. And I'm not as active in the Historical Society as I used to be. I have moved away from Culver City. Someone told me that my father would turn over in his grave if he'd known that I moved all the way to Venice, which is 15 minutes west, but I still managed to spend a lot of time in
We
Culver
still
City.
seem to be able to find you.
Oh,
no
yeah,
problem.
yeah, participate in a lot of events.
Oh,
And
and I see family
that's my
here.
current, that's my husband in the center, Ken. He was a planning commissioner and active in the city for a long time.
Right.
This was last Father's Day. We did this funky little photo. My older son, Paul, to the left, pointing to, he has 2 children, Shotaro, 15, and Kana, 14. My other son, Garrett, to the right, who lives, splits his time between Key West and Lake Tahoe, so he lives a tough life.
The boys are products of Culver City schools.
Oh,
here.
yeah. And Paul still lives in Culver City, and I think he wouldn't be anywhere else.
That's great. That's great. So you were Y Family of the Year as well. As I recall.
Oh, there's
They're the
Shotaro
grandchildren.
and Kana. Kana graduated from middle school in Torrance in June.
Oh my gosh.
Y Family of the Year? Yes, we were, and we survived a curse that seemed to take place shortly after that, where every time a family was named Y Family of the Year, the couple divorced the next year or something. But I think that little phase has passed by. So
That's good. Well, you've always been a leader. Lead them the other way.
Yeah. Still 45 years we've been married.
45.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Pretty appalling, yeah.
So could you characterize the councils that you sat on a little bit?
The first council from 1986 to 1990 was comprised of the 2 or 3 gentlemen that had been on. All of them had been on probably 12 to 16 years, almost at that point, 10 to 12 years at that point anyway. And we were the ones that were very collegial, polite, tactful, had a great time at meetings. We had an informal social network too, which I don't think we see that much anymore. And I think we were able to accomplish a lot for the city. The next council, oh, then, every 2 years it turns over, or can turn over slightly, a portion of the council, and we began to see an influx of the newer, like a Stephen Gorley, who has now gone on to head the State of California Department of Motor Vehicles. And we had a repeat councilman, Dr. Jim Bulgarides, who'd served years before and had come back again. So the dynamic changed. Then we saw Albert Vera come on. The dynamic changed again, Mike Balkman. And it evolved to the point where it was good. It was not as comfortable as it had been, because we didn't always know where the other person was coming from, what their attitudes or what their opinions were going to be. And I think we learned a lot about different segments of the community that we may not have been aware of, and little geographical pockets that became active over one issue or another. Rancho Higuera. Who would have known that, Higuera Street could become Rancho Higuera? And that's nice, because there was an identity and a pride in that neighborhood. So we saw a representation from there. Then later on with David Houtman.
David Houtman and I will forever disagree on this one, of course, because that was really Rancho Rincon de los Bueyes that was owned by the Higueras, but that's okay. Tell me about your legacy. We're going to need to wrap up now.
Oh, okay.
So.
My legacy? I didn't leave any particular legacy.
Oh, I think you did. What are you most proud of that you affected on the council?
Well, I really think the recycling effort, and I really think the successful, generating Sony's presence in Culver City in a positive way, and I think that's really what I'm most proud of. Someone will probably remind me that could have been another 2 or 3 things, but I don't.
Well, probably working together, probably having a council that really worked together with the community, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I wish councils now were able to attain that same cheerful outlook.
That's a good wish. Thank you very much, Jozelle Smith, for joining us today. I hope you come back.
I will. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you. You're a real legend.